That means the intelligences who govern the seeds and the germination. That is your own seeds and your own germination. That means you have to keep the purity of your sex mechanism and the holiness of the valuable gift given to you. Understanding that the sex mechanism is a very valuable gift because it decides the quality of yourself being reproduced. Quality of yourself being reproduced. If you misuse your sex mechanism and sex impulsion, if you use it for indulgence and enjoyment, then it will be impure. You will be polluting it. The result is disease and a child conditioned by the dirty pollutions you made. And the result, the consequence of it is the next generation become crazy and nervous and neurotics and semi-mental patients with sex perversions and monstrous instincts of homosexualism. So, preserve the race and the quality of the nation and contribute to the purity of mankind by paying your second obligation to the intelligences who reproduce in you. This is the second obligation described in the Vedas. Then the third obligation is to the rishis. That is, those intelligences that are working with your mechanism of learning, your intelligence, your mind, your senses, your logic, your learning, your teaching, all these things are governed by those intelligences that are working in your cerebrospinal system and the ductless glands, which we call the endocrines. Yes, exactly, same thing, endocrines. So, you keep the purity of this mechanism and understand the achievement of man in the world up to your date in the field of sciences and arts, law and defense, and all the things achieved to make it convenient for mankind to live. Achievement. Made mankind achieve to make mankind live more conveniently. For example, we take a train and get down at Geneva, but we never remember that James Watt has discovered the steam engine. We take an aeroplane in Geneva, get down in Rome to make big profits in our business. Sometimes we do not know at all the name of Wright brothers who discovered how to fly. So the third obligation is not to live like a fool about these things, but keep the mechanism of your learning pure. Make yourself a specialist in some field or other and contribute something to the world to make the world better and more convenient to the already contributed good things. To add to already existing, this is what is called the obligation to the rishis. As soon as a human being is born on this earth, he is said to have born with these three debts. That is, he is indebted. It is his duty to pay off these three debts before he dies. That is what the Vedas describe about the Devas. The second aspect is the Devas make their presence known by you only by their work and never directly. That is another proposition taken from the Vedas. When you see a watch, you don't remember the parts fixed in it, but you remember the total as a watch. If you observe the light, you do not remember the cover and the bulb or the filament in the bulb or the wires that are connecting, but you remember only the totality, which you call the light. So, if you see a pullover, you remember it only as a pullover, but you do not remember the millions and millions of fibers that are making it. This is the nature of the human observation. It takes things total. The totality is perceived, the texture is neglected. Similarly, the Devas are concealed in the texture of everything, and the total conceals the Devas in it. If you drink a tumbler full of water, you see only water and not the intelligences that are making the properties of the water. They are finer than the atoms and their counterparts. The mind does not stop with them. Just as when you touch the skin of your wife or husband, you will feel only the person and not the skin. You do not remember the anatomy of the person. While we are talking to our friend, we do not remember that we are talking to the skull and the eyeballs and the holes of the friend. But we talk to the friend. But the friend is only the totality of the millions and millions of counterparts. So the devas are working under the wheel of the totality, and let it be in the atom or in the solar system, they keep a cover and work in secret and make you call by some other name. You will call it a friend. You will call this a matchbox. You will call this a photo. But you will never perceive the parts that make the whole. That is how the devas conceal themselves and reveal the totality to you. This is because your consciousness which is observing is also a totality and not an individual. Like the bubble, soap bubble, it is not an item, but it is the resultant of many things at work, many forces at work. What you call the observer in you is only a resultant and not an item. Therefore, the other things are also understood only as the totalities. This is another point described about the devas in the Vedas. And a third point is, you have 3 utterances and 3 salutations to be done to the world in 3 planes. To the human plane, you have to make the first salutation, that is called your attitude of human welfare. That is the altruism. You have to work anything for the human welfare. Welfare means common good. And whatever you do should be intended for the humanity at large in your mind. So, whenever you think of a person or a group of persons, it is for the goodwill and welfare. You have to make your salutation in the form of your work and contribution. And your second salutation is to the Pitrus. You have to offer your salutation to them by feeding them with proper food, by regulating your food habits, making your food more healthy, hygienic, and regulated according to timings, and then make the salutation by keeping the purity of sex relations. This is called your second salutation, your salutation to the reproducing intelligences. The third is called the salutation to the devas. That is, you honor the law of the devas. Then the devas will honor you. Just as we observe the rules of electricity and make the connections, and only when all the regulations of electricity are properly observed and all the connections are properly made, then only you will be honored with the light. Otherwise, if you on the switch, there is no light. Similarly, in any branch of science, it is only by honoring these devas that you are being honored by them. If anyone thinks that man has conquered nature by scientific advancement, it is false, because we follow the law of nature and obey the law of science. We make the connections according to the scientific rule and we are getting the result. That means we are obeying and we are not conquering. If you say that man has conquered electricity, that is false. Man is submitting himself to the rules of electricity and he is getting the results. So, give your third salutation to the devas by bending your heads to them and honoring them with the rules you have to apply. Then they will honor you with the results. That is what Bhagavad Gita also says. By honoring the devas of nature, they are honoring us. When you till your land with the plough in proper season, you make a cultivation. When you make your field ready when it rains, then only your fields will have the benefit of rain. The same rain will be received by the cultivated land, and another man who is sleeping without cultivation, and in the first field there will be food to eat. In the field of the second one there will be all wild trees and seeds, and it is because he has not honored the rain. That is what Bhagavad Gita says. Honor the devas in nature. You are honored. So these are the three salutations described. Now let us try to understand where we have to cooperate with the devas. See how the evolution is going on. We know the evolution of the mineral kingdom in the earth, and we call it non-living. And we see the plant kingdom in nature. We call it the beginning of the living. So the living and the non-living are being taught in the colleges and universities. When we go to the biology class, this is the first lesson, which is utterly false and not at all true. But still we are learning it, because when you go to the nuclear physics department, you will receive a lesson that every atom is dancing with activity. When you come to the biology class, the mineral kingdom is classed as non-living. So there is a big wall between two professors, the professor of biology and the professor of nuclear physics. The wall cannot be broken. Unless it is broken, the devas are not going to favor us. In the mineral kingdom, it is the devas that are working. There are not yet living beings according to our estimate. There are not the living beings according to our estimate. When the minerals are evolved into the plant kingdom, they enter the plant kingdom, then the biological kingdom starts. It begins with the unicellular organism. Then we find the plant kingdom evolving more and more, and when it is completed, the living being enters into the animal kingdom, and it develops the mechanism to know pain and pleasure. That means some of the cells are separated as brain cells, and some of the cells are separated as the vertebral column, and some other cells are separated for the nervous system. For the first time, there is the segregation of cells to make the environment felt and pain and pleasure known. That is the birth of the animal kingdom. So when plants are eaten by animals, the living beings of the plant kingdom come into touch with the animal kingdom and the human kingdom. Then they enter into the animal kingdom. When the evolution in the animal kingdom is completed, the animal becomes the first human being. For the first time, it begins to behave as man, and nature leaves the fellow to himself, giving him a power which is not there in the animals. That is the power to know what is good and what is bad, the power to know what is temporary and what is permanent, the power to select the desirable thing and to reject the undesirable. It gives us the knowledge to know everything, and it leaves us with our own discretion. We are left independence on this earth for the first time from the moment we enter into the human kingdom. Then we begin to misuse our independence. We eat when we are hungry, and we eat when we are not hungry also, because something is tasteful, or because my uncle's daughter's marriage is being performed and there is a big banquet. I begin to eat more than I need. I drink not only water but many valuable things, even though I am not thirsty. I begin to take part in sex activity for pleasure, not for reproduction. And when it is not season to produce, it is not the case with the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. The animal cannot eat when it is not hungry, cannot drink when it is not thirsty, and cannot mate when it is not a season. So we begin to misuse our independence. The result is disease. That is why the human beings are, among the human beings we find the maximum number of patients, more than any species of animals and plants. And we cannot deny these facts. We cannot deny these facts. We can feel jealous of the animals and plants, but we cannot deny these facts. The result is a broken down constitution, much disabled, much destroyed because of frequent misuse. So we began to use this machine without knowing the engineering of the machine. So we make it foul when it is before middle age. Then we are obliged to live in this foul smelling and dirty vehicle. Foul smelling, stinking. because we have spoiled it. Or another alternative is to remove this by suicide. Of course, when the death is natural, when the death is a natural death, nature gives us a better and a tender vehicle once again, and even though we spoil it many, many times, nature gives us tender bodies once again through a peculiar process which we call death and birth. The process of death and birth are necessitated to give us only once again tender bodies whenever we spoil it untimely. After some experiments, we begin to grow wise and we begin to behave like animals once again. Yes, that means we eat only when we are hungry, we drink when we are thirsty, and we begin to keep up the purity of sex by not misbehaving out of season. Then the result is which gives us the impulsion to know ourselves. The lower ourself tries to know the higher ourself, just as the light is reflected again towards its own source by using a mirror. Similarly, we get at an impulsion. We will feel the impulsion to know ourselves. We realize that the activity going on in us is only the activity of the mind and the senses, and the brain cells are occupied by the activity of the mind and the sense. The mind and the senses are only our light and not ours. We will discover that our mind has not yet allowed ourselves to occupy our brain cells. And at this point, we begin to learn how to make the mind focused, how to make the senses withdraw into the mind properly, so that the unit of mind and senses will focus ourselves into the brain cells properly, so that the activity of the physical vehicle and our functions are done by ourselves, not our desires, our imagination, our expectations, our ideals, and our falsification, our hope. They should not lead us, we should lead them. And then comes a time when we realize this and fill up the gap, make the mind and senses focused, then the purpose of the human birth is finished. Then what is the next step in evolution? Many biological professors have given many imaginative ideas. There is the idea of the Superman given by the biologists, each according to his own conception. Someone has given us an idea that the head becomes bigger and bigger, like the patient of the hydrocephalus, and the whole trunk becomes very little, and hands and legs like hairs, because we do not require much food when we are more evolved, and our intelligence will grow more and more. Such ugly and ghastly pictures of the Superman are given. Ugly and ghastly, demonic, so that we will get a nightmare of the Superman when we read it. And real thinkers came by the end of the last century and the beginning of this century. True thinkers came in the end of the last century and in the beginning of this century, who have corrected these dirty ideas. George Bernard Shaw has washed off many such dirty conceptions in biology, and he has given the right attitudes of the Superman. And H.G. Wells has given some right ideas about the Superman. There are many spiritualists and thinkers who have given us the true idea of a Superman. The so-called Superman is nothing but the human being without a physical body. After the necessity of the physical body is finished, we begin to live more evolved, not in an ugly and unscientific nature, but our sense of proportion will grow more and more. We develop moderation in everything, and the candle power of common sense will grow. Candle power, that is the illumination, degree of illumination, and then we stop thinking all nonsensical things in noble names. We do not make any experiments with the planchette and the pencil, write all rubbish and nonsense we wish to do, scribble all nonsense, all stupid things we want to write, and calling it the dictation from the master, or from the spirit, or from the disembodied soul. All these things will stop. and we will be candles of common sense, which do not require any wax. We will be lamps without fuel, sparks of illumination. We can receive bodies if we want, and we can discard the bodies immediately after the purpose is served. After the purpose is served. So that death is not a compulsory tragedy. Until then, death is a nightmare and a tragedy which kills you every day. But when you reach this point of incandescence, you can be living with full consciousness and a better consciousness and common sense, and without this physical body. You need no food and drink. You have no necessity to eat more when it is tasteful, and no necessity of contraceptives. There is only the necessity to help, because you have no needs of the body and no desires of the mind. Desires belong to the mind, and hence they cannot be fulfilled in us. Needs belong to the body, and it is compulsory to fulfill them. This is our position. And to the Superman, there are neither desires nor needs. Because there is no body, there are no needs. Because the mind is accomplished, because the mind is a master, there are